The socialist brand, though, I think is the one that's really the political problem. It's very serious. And the Republicans accuse every Democratic candidate of being a communist, essentially. And most of the time, by far in the great majority, overwhelming majority of cases, that's a fantastical lie. But in the case of Mamdani, it's just an exaggeration of what he describes himself as a democratic socialist.
Let's get a very different perspective on all of this. We can speak now to Spencer Critchley, who is a Democratic strategist and a former communications advisor to Barack Obama. Very good to have you on the programme. Good evening, Spencer.
Good to be here. Thank you. And I want to stress, too, I was an advisor to the Barack Obama campaigns, not to President Obama personally.
Well, thanks for clarifying that point. Zohran Mamdani has clearly run quite a campaign. Do you think he is on course to be the next mayor of New York?
It certainly looks that way. Yes, he's run really a remarkably effective campaign, which I think everybody has to recognize, despite whatever enthusiasm or misgivings they may have about his candidacy.
Why is there so much concern amongst mainstream Democrats, let alone the Republicans, about Zohran Mamdani and what he might do as mayor in New York?
Well, given the heinousness of the alternative in the present political environment, where one of the two major parties is actively tearing down democracy, and it's no exaggeration to say that, not just in favor of an extreme ideology, but in favor of just the most massive corruption ever imaginable in the United States.
But why is there so much concern within the Democratic Party about Mamdani?
Yes, there is still concern about Mamdani, including on my part. And, I would very much like to be an enthusiastic supporter of Mamdani because I like the kind of campaign he's run. And he seems like a very winning person. By all accounts, he's a very good person who has good motivations in entering this race. But I think he's also a very good symbol of the ideological confusion among Democrats. And it's a confusion that's existed for a long time. I think you could trace it back to the 19th century, frankly, but it's really coming to a head now. And that's a confusion between the liberal left, which is the mainstream Democratic Party, and by far most Democrats, and the illiberal left, which ultimately is descended from Karl Marx. And this is not to say that Mamdani is a Marxist, but there is a way of thinking about leftist politics that is descended from Marx. That
well,
we
he's
see
talking
now
here.
In the
He's
current
talking, isn't
Democratic
he?
Socialists.
He's talking, isn't he, about controls on rents, on rent prices. He's talking about free bus travel for many New Yorkers. He's talking about bringing down the cost of living. Why is that such a problem for so many within the democratic movement?
I actually don't think that is the problem. I mean, those are just policy ideas. They are very attractive to many people, especially in New York, which is a truly just outrageously unaffordable place to live. So you can certainly see why those are attractive policies. And I think that accounts for much of his broad-based appeal, aside from his just really significant political talents as a campaigner. It's really not so much that. I would say that it's more about his positions on Israel, his past comments on defunding the police, which he has since walked back, and his membership in the Democratic Socialist Party. If you actually, look at what the leaders of the Democratic Socialist Party say, they will tell you themselves, they mean it. They are socialists. They're not just kind of socialists. They're not just social democrats. They are socialists. I don't know if that's true of Mamdani. But it's hard to avoid the confusion if you read some of the statements coming out of the Democratic Socialists themselves. And I think many of his supporters are actually confused about what socialism is, too, because many of them, if you ask them, say, well, it's like what they have in Norway and the other Nordic countries or much of Europe, where you have, strong governmental health programs and education programs and strong safety nets. And that is not full-on socialism. And I think a lot of people really misunderstand that.
Well, Spencer, I did want to ask you. I mean, clearly the Democratic Party has been struggling to recover from the defeat at the last presidential election, still trying to work out exactly how to confront President Trump and his second term in power, when without doubt he has certainly delivered change, whatever you think of that. And do you think that if, as seems almost certain, Mamdani is elected tonight, that will inevitably mean that he is perhaps seen by many as the voice of the Democratic Party, and that he will pull the Democratic Party further to the left?
No, I think it's actually much more likely he will be pulled towards the center, as has already happened. As you say, he's walked back from the defund the police statement. He's walked back much of his comments about Israel, and has really made an effort to demonstrate what I think is a genuine belief that all people should be treated equally, and certainly that has to include Jews and Israelis. But he will certainly be painted as the representative of the Democratic Party by the Republicans. So in that sense, he would be a huge political gift to them, because as a self-described socialist, they don't have to make that up about him. And as somebody who has said, including recently, that he opposes Israel's existence as a Jewish state, he thinks it should be a secular liberal democracy. That's a political problem as well. The socialist brand, though, I think is the one that's really the political problem. It's very serious. And the Republicans accuse every Democratic candidate of being a communist, essentially. And most of the time, by far in the great majority, overwhelming majority of cases, that's a fantastical lie. But in the case of Mamdani, it's just an exaggeration of what he describes himself as a democratic socialist.
Okay.
And so they will seize on that for sure as a political opportunity.
It's been great to have you with us. Spencer Critchley, Democratic strategist. Thank you so much for your insight tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're listening to Carol Walker on Times Radio.
For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
And this campaign was necessary to make that point. A caution flag that we are heading down a dangerous, dangerous road.
And let me warn our new leader, if you try to implement socialism, if you try to render our police weak and impotent, if you forsake the people's public safety, we're not only organizing, but we are mobilizing